Hey, Steve Gamache here with another Chef Knives to Go quick look product review, and what we have this time is the Kohetsu VG-5 Tsuchime or hammered finished Gyuto 210mm knife. So as mentioned, the steel on this is VG-5 full stainless steel, which is kind of a variation off of VG-10. It's a little different composition. It's actually a good steel. It's tough. It's easy to sharpen, and don't, if this knife has the features you want, don't necessarily be afraid just because it's VG-5. Some people get a little too concerned sometimes about the steel, but it's a really good, this is a really nice line of knives. It's well executed. So the heat treat's about 60, 61 on that core steel. It's got a full stainless steel cladding on either side of that hard core steel, and that cladding does have a hammered Tsuchime finish to it, modeled finish to it. Kind of a fair amount of polish to it as well, as you can kind of see from the lighting. The weight and dimensions might vary just a little bit from knife to knife. This one's 288 grams or 10.2 ounces, and the edge length's about 268 millimeters or 10.6 inches. So, big blades. Overall length about 402 millimeters or 15.8 inches. These are actually kind of not super thick. They're about, I got about 2.7 at the back here coming out of the bolster, and about 2.6, and these are fairly beefy. They don't have a ton of taper, but you can see you do taper off a little bit in the thickness, and then there's your tip. It's not super duper skinny, but it gets fairly thin for some performance. And let's take a look at the 12 shot. And these actually get reasonably thin at the edge, not whisper thin, but thin enough to give you some good performance. The height is 53.2 on this, so it's got plenty of height. Handle is a black Packawood, which is a stabilized wood product. You got a full Western stainless tang. You got stainless rivets. You got a nice integrated bolster that flows right into the handle, so very nice execution on all that. The handle is just a little bigger than you would see on a 240, so it's got an appropriate kind of slightly larger handle, and that as a knife of this size would be appropriate for. If you've got bigger hands, you'll really like this. Although my hands are kind of smallish, medium, and I can still use it no problem. But it definitely has a little bit more meat to it, which is, again, on a big knife like this, it should. The out of the box edge on these is very good. 6, maybe 7 out of 10 on my scale. It's quite sharp out of the box. Let's do our beauty shot on these. These are well crafted knives. So again, it's a big blade. The right side of the blade has some etched kanji on it, and then there's your hammered finish on it. A little bit of polishing. They tend on these knives to do a little bit of thinning on the right side, so you'll see a fair amount of polish above. It's not the edge bevel, it's a thinning that they do to increase the performance. The left side of the blade don't have that, and it's a little bit easier to see the cladding line on the left side of the blade. You can see that cladding line down towards the edge there. I'll go kind of slow with it. It's there. It's hard to pick up, but it is there. Kind of a plain edge, or excuse me, the plain finish with the hammered on the left side of the blade. No kanji or anything. They've done a nice job with the fit and finish. They've relieved the corners of the spine just a little bit. They have done a little bit of relief work on the choil, so it's comfortable. Again, this is a big blade. It's got a fairly nice, stiff, stout feel to it. And, it's 10 ounces, so it's got some meat to it. The balance point is actually pretty close to a pinch grip for me, because the blade's, got a little meat to it and some weight. So for myself, that's pretty close to a pinch. If you got bigger hands, a pinch might be just a little forward of that, but it's pretty neutral for me, for my particular pinch grip, which is pretty cool for a knife that's this heavy. Makes it feel a little bit lighter than it is. What else? Let's look at the cutting board profile. All right, so here we go. So this has a excellent versatile profile. It's got a fairly aggressive belly towards the tip, so I can get pretty darn high. And then with the 270, the longer you go, the less you really have to raise and pump that heel to get it over product. So it's one of the advantages of a long knife, is if you're going to do some rocking, you don't have to crank it way up and down like you would with a shorter knife. So it's actually less work and less motion to do a similar thing than you would have to do with like a 210. Another advantage of a longer blade is, of course, you can work on bigger product or more product at the same time. And then you can also use sections of the blade. So if a certain part of the blade gets a little dull, then you can move to a different section that's sharper and use that. So you can actually kind of work that in sections if you need to kind of use up the sharpness of it until you go ahead and touch it up or resharpen it. So there's a number of interesting things about a longer blade. But you've got a good flat spot towards the back here that you could do some awesome chopping with, and you can see it's pretty flat. You got a little bit, this could even be my cutting board doing that, but you got a little bit, you know, good half of that blade's pretty flat towards the back, and so that's going to give you an awesome section for chopping. So this profile has a lot going for it. You can see it's pretty flat towards the back, it's got some pretty aggressive belly towards the tip, and so you could do a lot of cool stuff with this knife and really knock out some prep with it, home or professional. So this is the Kohetsu VG-5 Tsuchime or hammered Gyuto 270mm knife.